What's up, everybody? Welcome to the CanesInSight Daily Podcast, powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. It's Tuesday. That means Miami record holder Amon Richards going to be on the show. Always good to talk to him, get his insight on the FSU game, a game that he has participated in, a game that he has won, a game that he has knocked people out in. So it'll be fun to talk to him. A lot to break down with that one. Big announcements from Mario Cristobal, Shannon Dawson, Corey Heatherman about JoJo Trader, Jordan Lyle, their availability. We'll get into all of that and just break it down, man. First, got to talk about some folks that always will break down your case. That is Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. Pete, hop in here.
Good morning, D.
What's going on, man? How we feeling?
Doing well, man. Always love these Tuesdays with Amon, and got a lot to talk about. We started getting to the Florida State matchup a bit last week with him. Didn't dive in fully, but we have a lot more to dissect now that we have that Virginia game to look at. So excited to hear his thoughts today.
Yeah, the Virginia game, a lot different than the Alabama game. Watch both. I mean, it was really like two different teams. So we'll talk about that. I will tell you, Pete, that that Virginia offense, the way they ran the ball, watching FSU, they really were standing around like some potted plants you might have in your landscape with OrchidManFlorida.com. That is Orchid, ORCHID, manflorida.com. Landscape artisan, working from the Keys all the way up to Palm Beach. One-stop shop. If you have a commercial property, residential property, want to get your landscaping done, they'll do the pretty work and the dirty work, sprinkler repair, irrigation, tree trimming, tree stump grinding, you name it, fertilizing, maintenance. They will do that, as well as connecting you with the best plants, flowers, everything else in the region and making it look beautiful, man. So you don't want to manage the whole project. You want someone to be the quarterback on your landscaping, make it high-end. OrchidManFlorida.com, ORCHID, manflorida.com. But yeah, like that's the big takeaway I had from the FSU game, Pete, is like that Virginia is their effort level and their tackling was abysmal going against, I mean, a Virginia offensive line that was missing three players and really not a spectacular unit.
Only one starter.
All right. Well, it was not Miami's offensive line. Let's put it that way. The quarterback was injured and threw 3 picks. We like him. We like Chandler Morris, but it's not like he was in top form physically or just decision-making wise. And the reason they lost, to me, is that their effort was not there. They did not run to the ball. They did not swarm. They did not tackle well whatsoever. They just didn't look physically present. My concern in this game, my only concern, besides injuries and weird stuff, is if Miami does not, this is Miami's first road game, just like that was FSU's first road game, and they didn't show up. Alabama didn't show up to their road game against FSU. Is Miami going to show up to this road game, which is their first road game, emotionally, physically? They've been playing with such violence, swarming to the ball. If they can do that and maintain that intensity against FSU, I think it's going to be a bloodbath. Now, if they don't show up with that intensity, you saw what happened with Alabama. The more talented team got jumped on, playing from behind, and FSU's got the momentum. They're doing all their trick plays, all the bells and whistles. They're eating the clock, and you're in trouble. So that, to me, is really the whole game. If Miami can bring the intensity, I really don't see any way that FSU can win because they just don't have a lot of talent. But if Miami doesn't show up, the less talented team can win, as it did when Florida State beat Alabama by 2 touchdowns at home.
Right. That's what I was going to say. I think every Saturday, these guys are 18 to 22 years old, sometimes a little bit older than that in Beck and Mesidor's case, for example. But there's a lot of volatility when it comes to which team's going to show up. Fortunately, as we've talked about, and I think it's one of Mario's top traits as a coach, these guys come ready to play. Like, it's one thing to say things happen throughout the course of the game. I get it. But in terms of coming out with the right energy, with the right mindset, generally his teams at Miami and When I said this the other day, someone pointed out, well, he laid a couple eggs against Utah. The second time, I have a feeling the team knew he was out to Miami. So I don't count that one as part of the equation. But generally, his teams don't go out and lay an egg. So there's no reason to think that rivalry game, first game on the road, obviously a different environment, but I think this team from the mental standpoint is well prepared and led by a guy. Again, you just see Mario's demeanor coming out. You see some of the pictures pregame against Florida, for example, against Notre Dame, and it's a very serious attitude, right? And I think that you got to give him a ton of credit for. We talk about the recruiting and the culture, but part of the culture is having guys ready to play, and these guys are just very serious about how they approach things. This isn't a laughing matter for the coaching staff or anyone on this team. You don't see the same sort of dancing you saw on the sidelines previously. You don't see any of that stuff because it's next play mentality. So I know going on a bit of a tangent there, but that's just a thought of mine heading into this one, because I think he's shown it time and time again. His teams will be ready.
Yeah, no, I think you said it very well. By the way, shout out to Destin Dixon on every single day. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate when you get the people that you don't see every day in the chat just kind of saying what's up. Appreciate everybody that watches the show and listens. So I agree with what you just said. That as far as the personality of the coaching staff, I'd also go one further and say just the personality of the players. I mean, Ruben Bain does not strike me as the kind of guy to take games off. I know he had some bad games last year with a lot more to do with system, with body, with injury, with those kind of things. But as far as like intensity, I mean, Ruben Bain tries to kill people every single time he gets out there. He was tweeting about FSU during the Virginia game, kind of just laughing at them and talking about how he wanted to smash them next week. He had the rolling emojis of laughter and saying "you're next" after that Virginia loss. So,
I was a bit surprised about that, honestly.
I mean, he's been doing that this year. Haven't you noticed that with the binder and everything he's doing? Like,
a lot of that's been after the game, though, that he posted. That's why. Listen, he's earned the right to do it. I just that was something that I thought was a little bit like old school.
He reminds me right now
in the last 5 years.
Well, like Jerome Brown, right? Jerome Brown before our time, but obviously we've watched the old games on ESPN Classic and all that. He was like that, So I think Ruben Bain's, like you said, old school in that way. Old school Kane. And Aaron Donald, probably someone he grew up watching. He was kind of like that. I remember him always kind of bringing the intensity and bringing the taunts and stuff like that. So I don't see Ruben Bain letting up here like a Mo Touré. I don't really see letting up Wesley Bissain. These are older players too, Jacoby Thomas, right? So I think the fact that you have older guys, they're maybe going to be a little less shell-shocked. But I got to be honest, when I rewatch that Alabama-Florida State game getting ready for this week, I'm disgusted by Alabama. I mean, people are saying Alabama's a top 5 team. I can't, and I know first game.
I did. I said that.
Oh, yeah, you said it. We talked yesterday, but look, I don't remember, but we all know that Miami, when they won their first championship, got blown out their first game by Florida, and then they came back and won the rest of their games. So first games can be weird. I will acknowledge that. But that performance by Alabama was disgusting, just as I watch it. 87 rushing yards, and they allowed 230 rushing yards, and just their effort level was, I mean, if Nick Saban was probably watching that game smiling, knowing that his legacy gets better every time that team suits up. It's just a disgusting way to play, in my opinion. They passed the ball fine. They had protection. Although, on top of that, I should say, Caden Proctor, 74, who caught the pass last week, he must have had money on FSU in that game. I mean, somebody needs to check his gambling history because he played horrendous in that game. Markel Bell, if he plays half that bad, people will be calling for his head. And I don't think he will. I think he's going to dominate. But Caden Proctor.
So it was nothing that Florida State did.
I mean, Virginia didn't have that problem. They didn't. The defensive line didn't get one sack against Virginia. They had 2 sacks from a blitzing safety, and that's it. And they threw it a ton of times too. Let me see the box score of that one. Pull it up here now. But Caden Proctor to me is just a low effort player based on what I saw in that game. That was disgusting. I really was disgusted by Alabama when I watched that. I'm not buying stock in them at all. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they get it over the course of the year, but I hate that style of football. It's funny. we saw Alabama for so many years with that boring style, and we were like, oh, I can't wait till these guys are done. All this running and just stopping the run and being physical. But it's like, man, when that goes away, even if you have great receivers, and they have excellent receivers, probably the best in the country along with Ohio State, and their quarterback, I think we both like. But when you remove that style of football, they're just they're wearing the wrong helmets. Like, they belong in the Pac-10 the way they play. So, or the Big 12 or one of these loser conferences. So I don't know. I mean, look, I'm glad because I hate Alabama like everybody else, and I want them to fail. But yeah, watching that game makes me think about how far Alabama's fallen, more so than how much FSU's jumped up. But again, with that said, there's no guarantee that we play with that same effort. We've seen stinkers. I think you were right that we haven't seen as much emotionally flat performances. Right? That's not been the problem so much as where Mario team goes out with just no energy and no heart, at least not since the first year. It's been more execution issues. But yeah, I don't know. I'm like fired up because I watched it this morning, but it's like, man, who was that team wearing the crimson uniforms? Because they looked horrible to me.
Yeah, I mean, Ty Simpson was his first start.
But so if you're trying to protect your quarterback, how the hell do you run for 89 yards in that game?
I agree that the game did get out, did get out of grasp for them. It felt like the way the game was going, and they probably felt like they needed to, chase it a little bit. But
you look at Virginia by comparison, obviously there was more plays. It was a double overtime game, but 211 yards rushing, 4.4 yards an attempt. So
we have our guest here.
Let's bring him on, baby. The one, the only, the all-time leader, freshman, receiving yards, the man who put someone underground, blocking in this rivalry, probably maybe the most famous block in the history of this rivalry, definitely the most memed, the most gifed block. They use it during rivalry week every single time. If we beat them, they'll probably post that again all over, trolling FSU Twitter. Amon Richards, how we doing?
Doing good, man. How we doing? Pete, D Money.
But when you hit a block like that, like the one in the FSU game, is it like hitting a good golf swing or baseball swing and you don't really feel it and the ball just goes flying, or did you feel it?
Yeah, no, I mean, I felt it in my neck, but funny enough, but it was one of them hits, like the adrenaline is going, you know what I mean? I remember vividly like going into halftime because it was right after halftime and we couldn't do nothing on offense. We're struggling. The defense was getting stopped. So I was kind of like just pissed. Like, what are we doing? Like, we keep getting chance after chance and we're just out here playing. So I just coming out, just, took advantage of the opportunity. And, I like to say that early in the game, he told me to, I got a block in the back earlier because he turned his back on me when I went to go hit him. He told me to hit him in the front. So I think I did a pretty good job of, making sure it was legal in the chest, So yeah, man, it feels good though. I'm not gonna lie. There's nothing like a crackback in a rivalry game. Like, honestly, it was crazy. People started cheering, as a kid was hurt. Like, it was wild. It was wild, it was wild.
So, Amon, talk to the rivalry game. One thing we talked about just before you jumped on was like, when you watch FSU on film against Alabama at home, right, and then against Virginia on the road, the energy level is just completely different. The way guys were moving, the way the pads were popping. I mean, it was obvious just from a fan perspective watching that game. It was like two different teams with the same players. How real, for those of us who have been in the stands, how real is the emotional part of college football at this level?
It's very real because the expectations are so high. Like, all week long you're hearing about, even if you try to like weed it out, you're gonna hear it, right? Everyone's on social media, Instagram, or you may know someone, a friend, girl, whatever, that talk about the game, right? So the emotions, the build up is like real. That's why a lot of times you see like this pregame scuffles, right? Because guys just can't hold it. Like right now, I can guarantee you we're most likely, playing the Seminole war chant all practice. So you're hearing that every day. You're hearing about the quarterback and how he's athletic. And so guys like, Ruben Bain are hearing this all week long. And it's just like, you ready to just end it, right? You just want to hear, you want the noise to stop. So I do think a lot of emotions, but I do think the better team can always control those emotions and still like play within their scheme and execute the plan, because you can't get too high. You don't want to come out flat at the same time, right? You got to have a little edge to you, but you want to have that control, like chaos. That's what I would call it. Controlled chaos.
Amon, we did our show last Friday, just you and I, and that was pre-FSU Virginia. We're a few days removed from that now. What were your overriding thoughts on that one?
Talking about Florida State, Virginia, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Honestly, not really surprised. I was surprised that it was so high scoring, but I think I said on here, like, I think I said, you can't, like, they're focusing on us and we're hearing about their fan base and they're, talking about the big game. And it's like, they got to play Virginia on the road at the end of the day on a Friday night, so we'll see. And Lord and behold, they went out there and got popped. And what I saw from them was like, they tried to execute their game plan, but I feel like they tried to come out and be vanilla and it backfired on them. And when they realized like they're going to be in a shootout, I think that's when you start seeing their playbook like literally get used to the max. Like now you're seeing jump passes, like stuff that Miles On would use against like Alabama when he was at Auburn at the end of the season, right? Those like few trick plays you had, and then he had to bring it out because they still lost anyway, but that's what it seemed like to me. And they seemed desperate on the ropes. But more shockingly, I was more shocked that their trenches weren't as physical as what people were trying to tell us when they played Alabama. But honestly, I wasn't completely shocked by the loss. I even said on a space, like I was in a space with some of the fans, and I was like, Virginia gonna pop you guys, and I wasn't really saying they're trolling because I truly don't think Florida State's a dominant team. Like, I think they're a team that went 2-10, and people are shocked that it beat Alabama, which can happen at the first game of the season. But overall, like, there's still like you don't go from 2-10 to like 12-0. Like, I don't think that's very realistic. And we're starting to see that early excitement start to simmer a little bit. And now they're just have to execute and get back. Like, they're not playing with like that high emotion like they came into the season, like that back against the wall, prove everyone wrong, 2-10. The world was trolling us for a year. Like, I don't see that edge. So at least in the Virginia game, I didn't see that type of edge that they had. So shout out to Virginia though for getting the dub.
Yeah, like you said, going from 2-10 to whatever they want to be this year, it's like all these portal players are not created equal. When they got Jared Verse and Fisk and all those guys, Keon Coleman, everybody wanted those dudes. Those guys were dudes. It wasn't like surprises that they ended up being what they were. They won those battles. These guys, you don't really hear about. Deuce Robinson, maybe a little, but you didn't really hear about these guys in the portal. But, put on your DB hat for a second, like your Willington High School. Which I thought you would have been a hell of a DB. I remember back in the day, we were kind of debating on the boards whether you'd be a receiver or DB. I was like, look, you could do both. Man, those safety highlights look good. You were knocking people out, as we saw later with FSU.
I got a funny story, D Money, that I was supposed to play both ways. I was supposed to do the Travis Hunter before the Travis Hunter. It didn't work out when I got there, and there's some medical stuff popped up, so I couldn't. Rick kept me on offense, but there's some talks about something similar to Bryce Fitzgerald, how he's on third downs and just passing situations. I was gonna do something similar, but then I got there, kind of switched up. Then it gave me the big ass 82. So
I don't know, man. Sounds like they use a little recruiting ploy. They pull the old whoopsie do on you.
Hey, they got me, right? They got me, bro.
But so DB perspective, right? It's like FSU's passing game is unique because kind of they lull you to sleep and then boom, it's big plays. It's not like a every down kind of normal passing game like you see with some of the other teams. I guess USF has a little bit of that, but certainly it's not the normal passing game with what FSU does. How do you deal with that kind of game where it's like if you slip up for 1 second, you look in the wrong place, they're hitting you with a 60-yard touchdown as opposed to just marching down the field?
Yeah, man, it's difficult. At least when I play DB, it gets boring out there sometimes, and it's easy to fall asleep because if you're someone that, let's say, a really good corner, you're not really getting targeted that much. So you kind of get out there and you're kind of just going through the motions a little bit. You're just kind of playing your assignment. and then all of a sudden the guy runs a post route and you're trying to like, stay on point. So it's definitely important to just have like that focus, even when, you're not getting no action, even when the quarterback isn't targeting. Like, I don't think Castellanos is going to come out and just start throwing a ball like he's Pat Mahomes or anything like that, but he will take shots, as we saw in the last game. He will push the ball down the field. He can, get creative in the run game. He can extend plays as well outside the pocket. So you have to be focused, and I think that's something probably Heatherman is definitely going to make sure the guys, or the DBs in particular, just stay in your assignment. Because we seen last game, a pop pass, you see reverses, different concepts to kind of capitalize off DBs going to sleep based on how their offenses ran with the read options and that quarterback traps and things of that nature. So just always stay ready. I think that's where Virginia got caught slipping, because when Florida State started passing, we saw their DBs, they almost weren't ready. Even if they're in position, it didn't seem like they were expecting, really the ball to go their way. So it's difficult, but I think it's a challenge that, I think we'll have our guys ready for.
Thoughts on Deuce Robinson from what you've seen?
Yeah, I think he's a pro player for sure. Draftable guy. I mean, you just can't teach or coach like some of the stuff he's doing. Like that size, 6'6", and playing like it. I mean, those are just like, 50-50 balls, and they're literally just throwing them in his area, and he's just going to get it. So I do like his game a lot. I think I said early in the season, I think Deuce Robinson would be one of their better players. Just because, bro, that size and speed is definitely crazy.
And so if it's a well-placed ball, like even if it's Xavier Lucas on him, if it's a well-placed ball, which that's not a given in this situation. But like if it's a well-placed ball, then it's gonna be pretty tough to defend. No.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think this week, I don't know if the technique changes, but if I'm a DC or if I'm a DB, like I'm getting my eyes back at the quarterback, like I'm making contact with the receiver, like I wouldn't say press manning, but we're bumping and running, and at the midpoint of the route, like I'm getting my head turned around, because I'm going to be anticipating a lot of back shoulders this game. I don't think they're going to outrun our receivers. I don't think Deuce Robinson's faster than like Xavier Lucas, but he's a bigger body, so I think that's where there's a disadvantage. So guys like Lucas, Frederick, Ethan O'Connor, I think making contact within a route, like legally, having hands on a receiver, but getting your eyes back at the ball is going to be very important, because there's going to be a lot of back shoulders. As we've seen, they started doing it a lot towards the last game. So I think they found a little something that worked for them with their little connection. They'll try to continue it this week.
As Johnny Lagoon points out, I think Deuce Robinson scored on Lucas last year for like a 30-yard touchdown.
Yeah, it was. I was watching these. It was Lane, I think, Jacoby Lane, number 8, which that kid is just that kid is nasty, bro. That kid is nasty, bro.
So you got the nice scenery behind you there with the window. It's a beautiful day right now, but I'm hearing that might be a little rainy on Saturday. We don't know. It's Tuesday, but you know how these things go. It's been bad luck with rain for the Miami Hurricanes. Put yourself in the game. You played some rainy games. Obviously, you grew up down here. From not just the catching part of it, but the running routes. Your feet in the turf, just how it's feeling. Like, take us through from a player's perspective. Play it in wet conditions as a receiver.
Man, it's definitely like annoying for sure as a receiver, just because when you're cutting at the break points, you're always thinking in the back of your head, like, let me not, cut too fast. You're going to slip. And if you slip on any of these routes, it's most likely interception. So it's kind of one of those, you're going to be running fast, but you're not going to be running your full speed. You want to be under control, get open in the pockets, just make sure you catch the ball first. So I wouldn't be surprised of not seeing a lot of like yak or anything like that when it's a rain game. But one thing I do think that does work in rain games is double moves, only because the cornerbacks, they have to cut on the same surface. So if you're able to execute double moves and, things that get them on their toes, get them uncomfortable and make them hesitate, I think that'll be work. So I think we'll see a lot of like hitch routes, like digs, obviously the goal ball, maybe like comebacks, things like that nature, where the DBs have to chop their feet as well. But I hate it.
So it's not just with the rain part. So looking at the way FSU plays defense, they, from what I could see, you tell me if you see differently. I don't see great man coverage ability from FSU this year compared to what they've had in the past. They've had better DBs, had a lot of guys drafted or at least NFL opportunities. Earl Little, to me, I don't think is somebody that you want playing a ton of man coverage. Again, from my perspective, and they got killed in zone against Virginia. The pass rush wasn't getting home, and they were just getting in there. How do you see us attacking FSU's defense in the passing game, and where do you see vulnerabilities?
I think we'll see a similar look to Notre Dame. I think we're going to get a lot of man coverage. And off the strength that it's a rivalry, and every year I've played Florida State, it's like quite literally majority man coverage. And I think that's just what it is, where like, we don't like you, you don't like us, we're going to play man, we think your guys suck, and then we think your DBs can't guard us. So I think we're going to see a lot of like man bump and run and a lot of pressure. I think they're going to try to get after Carson Beck. I think they saw some things maybe that UF did at the, stunting at the line of scrimmage and sending backers and things of that nature to kind of change a window on him to make him like pause or chop his feet, whatever the case may be. So I anticipate a lot of blitzing. I think they were one of 3-3-5 or whatever the case may be. So I'm sure they're going to come with heavy pressure and just bump and run. I anticipate it. I'm almost, if I was a betting man and I had to bet my life on it, I would probably bet that they're going to run man coverage quite often throughout the game. Not saying it's going to work for them, because I think we have a lot of good man beaters, and we saw that against Notre Dame, but that's just what it usually is historically with Florida State and Miami.
Our boy Bagging Up says, Shannon Dawson said he has thrown 60 times in the rain and wasn't the reason for the lack of passing. We can put the we aren't throwing because it's raining to bed. I will say this. I don't know how many times that, at West Virginia, Houston, that Dawson had a run game to fall back on or an offensive line in the rain. I don't know that he had an opportunity. I don't know that he had the go ahead.
Pete, I wasn't gonna say it. I wasn't gonna bust that guy's bubble, but I was gonna be like, brother, none of those teams he coached had any type of rain game like us. So I mean, I didn't expect that, but he did elaborate that the weather climate, it didn't impact his decisions. Like, that wasn't the only reason, but it may have played a small part, just because, like he said, that the other team offense weren't doing nothing, and essentially, like, I'm not going to give them opportunities to get in the game by throwing the ball in the rain, which I just said that a guy slips, the ball, strip sack, whatever the case may be. Like, why would you continue throwing the ball when the team can't stop your run game? That makes no type of sense. We would be in here complaining if he kept airing it out in the rain and we lost. And they were like, why would you throw the ball like this 60 times in the rain? That's what we would say, So, I get it, though. We can be better for sure. I think we can execute better, which he said, but it do change this thing, in my opinion, when it's raining like that. And if they couldn't stop the run, I mean, why would you want to air it out like that? But